What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma if you're new here, and I love to talk about all things Peloton cycling and fitness. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I post every single Sunday. In today's video, I am trying something a little bit new. So I consider myself a casual runner, even though I have ran a marathon at this point. I still don't really feel like I know what I'm doing at all. Usually, when I go out for runs, I just kind of run as fast as I can for whatever distance. And I have gotten better because at the beginning I would run super fast. And then as the miles went by, really, really slow down. There'd be a very, very big range in my start pace to my end pace, especially for long distances like a half marathon or a marathon. And I've gotten slightly better at that. I mostly attribute that just to the number of miles I've been running per week. My miles per week have definitely decreased a lot since my marathon in March, but I am ready to kind of get back into it. And one thing that I really want to start working on is interval training. So interval training is just like HIIT training, can be done on the bike as well. You essentially have some amount of time on where you're going, hard, super hard, sprint, run. It could be varying of like how hard you're going, and then some amount of time recovery, whether that is a walk or a light jog. And I've taken interval classes on the Peloton app for outdoor before, and I've been really, really bad at them. Essentially, I do not take enough recovery, like I don't slow down enough. So when you look at the graph at the end of the class, you can't even tell I was doing an intervals run. Like it might have a little wiggle, but it's not what interval training it should be. And when I read online how to get your pace to be faster, which is kind of my ultimate goal now that I know I can run a marathon, how can I do it faster? The first advice is always run a lot of miles weekly. And the second piece of advice is always to add interval training to your running schedule. I am a little afraid because obviously I just read a lot of forums, but a lot of people say that, doing interval training incorrectly, too hard out of the gate or too frequently is a really easy way to get injured. And knock on wood, I've never had a running related injury, which I think is pretty incredible. I know a lot of people that do have running related injuries and they've run a lot less than me. So I definitely want to approach this in a safe manner and only do it around once a week, maybe even less, to make sure that my body has recovery. I'm also not going to be doing like really, really hard sprints. I'm not going to do 100 meters on, 100 meters off, just because I don't feel like that really aligns my goal. I do consider myself a distance runner, so there's no reason to like really do short sprints, short time off. I would be curious if anyone disagrees with this. I am very new to this and I just try to research online like what to do, but that's kind of the conclusion that I've come to. So in this video, I'm going to try 3 different interval runs and give my thoughts on them. They're all pretty basic because, again, I am a beginner at this, but I'm curious to see how I feel after them, if I can actually see a changing graph. That's kind of my biggest goal. I think I am going to try to do really, really slow jogging during the recovery. I don't particularly want to walk, but we'll see. There might be some game time decisions that will change my mind, but that kind of is the goal. And today I'm going to be doing my first interval run. So I thought I would start it off easy. I found an interval online that is just 1 minute on, 1 minute off, repeat indefinitely. I'm going to do a 5-mile loop, so I think that will probably be 25 intervals if I had to guess. Maybe a little more because my jog pace should slow down my time. I also thought this would be easier to start than a distance interval where you do like a half mile on, half mile off, just because like 1 minute on, 1 minute off seems like it should be very, very easy to track. And it's not like I don't get recovery if I'm not completing the distance. Like I know I will always get the recovery in 1 minute. So I'm feeling good about this, kind of excited and a little bit nervous, but this is truly like my first interval run where I'm actually going to try intervals. So let's go drive to the running trail and give this interval run a try. I'm about to start my run, but I figured I'd show you what I set up on the workout app on my Apple Watch because Peloton does not offer functionality like this. So I have my outdoor run, and you can see that I have this custom plan set, which I already created. And I just named it 1 minute on, 1 minute off, not a creative name. But essentially, I have a 5 minute warm up where I'm going to jog. And then I put 1 minute work, 1 minute recovery, repeat 20 times. I actually think that'll be fine with my warm up and cool down. If I have like extra time, I can just do a longer cool down. And if I finish the loop, I can just start a new loop. I think 20 is good here. And then a 5 minute cool down. And essentially, my Apple Watch should buzz every single minute. So now I don't have to worry about tracking the time while I'm running, which is really nice. And you can also set this on distance. I don't know what open means, but there's a lot of functionality here, which is very cool. So we are ready to run now. We're stretched out and ready to start. Here goes nothing. That was definitely hard, but I really liked it. It actually made the run go by really quickly because you were always counting down to the next minute. I thought the notification system worked well. It just buzzed. I did miss the interval very early on. I'm not sure what happened, but the watch tells you if you should be doing run or recovery. And I looked down and I was doing recovery when I was supposed to be running. So then I just doubled up on the work and like got back onto the right interval. I'm excited to see my stats, but so far so good. Maybe I could have pushed myself a little bit harder, although my heart rate was very, very high. And yeah, I'm happy with it. It was a fun first intervals workout. It took a few seconds for my data to load in my fitness app, but yeah, at the beginning I did 2 work intervals in a row, and then I got off, and then I did 2 more work intervals in a row to get back on. So a little mix up in the beginning, but it was fine. My interval pace was really a range anywhere from like 7:30 minute mile pace to around 8:15 minute mile pace. It's actually kind of all over the place. It's not like I just did slower intervals at the end. So it could also be a little hilly here, and that could impact that. And then my recovery pace was pretty solidly around 10:30 up to 11 minute mile. So pretty happy with that. I'd love to get my interval pace down to like 7. So something I can work on, it's my first one. But overall, that definitely went better than expected, and I would do that interval workout again. And now I'm way more excited to try my other interval runs later. It is now a week later and I'm ready for my next intervals run. The only thing is I'm a little nervous because it is cloudy outside and slightly drizzling, but it seems like the rain will stop. It's been raining a ton in Pennsylvania lately, and I was like, I could push this off till tomorrow, but tomorrow also shows rain. So, the struggles of running outdoors, but we're going to make the most of it. And today I'm going to be doing a distance-based interval run. I'm going to be trying a half mile on, half mile off at that 5 mile loop again. It actually is around like 5.3 miles. My plan is to do a half mile warm up and then do half mile on, half mile off 5 times, and have the last half mile off kind of be a cool down. If I need to do even more than that, I definitely can. That should be 5.5 miles, which is around the loop. I might kind of have to double back a little bit, but I think that should be a good length. And the goal of today is to see my heart rate recover during the recovery half mile offs. Because when I was looking at my data from last run, I definitely saw pace recovery. Like my paces were very different between the work and recovery intervals, but my heart rate just steadily went up. Throughout the intervals, I think I started around like 165, 170 heart rate, which is pretty high, but not the absolute highest for me. My heart always really skyrockets during running, but I saw no recovery. It just slowly went up to like 180-ish by the time the intervals were done. So I think part of that is that 1 minute of recovery is a lot of time, but at the same time, it's like not a lot of time. So I'm hoping with a half mile recovery, that should be around, 5 minutes of recovery. So I'd love to see that heart rate really like come back down. I don't know what a good heart rate is, but I definitely think I should be able to see some recovery, and then I can really push it on the half mile intervals. So I'm excited to see how this one goes. Definitely like longer intervals, and I'm interested to see what I think of distance based, but I'm excited. Last time I enjoyed it. So let's go drive to this running trail and pray the rain stays away. We have very basic custom workout on the Apple Watch. So just half mile warm up and then 5 work recovery half mile intervals. So let's go. It is really not that nice of a day out, but right now it's a very light drizzle, so it should be fine. I guess the upside will be nobody else should really be on this trail. That felt so much harder than the 1 minute by 1 minute intervals I did. The half miles just felt like they went on forever. So I did 5 intervals. The first 4 were under 8 minutes, like around 7:45-ish, which I was very happy with. But I was dying at the end. My last interval was like 8:22, but I was running like slightly uphill. The last interval was a little hilly, but I was also so tired. My recovery intervals were between 10 and 11 minutes, which I think that's great. And my heart rate came down a little bit, but not that much. My heart rate during recovery was still like 170, but during work, I was getting up to like the high 180s. So I do see some heart rate recovery, but it's definitely something I need to work on. So if you have tips, let me know. I do try to regulate my breathing, breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. It's hard for me to do during the work intervals, but during recovery, I get to that pretty quickly. And I thought that would help my heart rate more, but it really doesn't. I don't know if I should be going even slower, but I'm like really moving slow when I'm jogging at like an 11-minute pace. I don't know if I can jog slower than that. So I'm kind of at an impasse here, but I definitely think I like time intervals more. The distance, you just never know when it's up. Like it depends how fast you go, right? So I guess it was nice because then you have longer recovery than work because you're going at a slower pace. But for me, I just felt like I never knew when the interval would end, and then it just felt like it went on forever. Like with the 1 minute on, 1 minute off, you just always knew recovery was coming soon. So definitely interesting. My intervals, I think, were a bit faster than the 1 on, 1 off, which does make sense because I got more recovery. But yeah, I don't know. I think I like time intervals more. And I'm glad I did a time interval for my first interval run because if this was my first run, I don't think I would like interval runs that much, but I'm interested to try one more and see how I feel. It is now several days later, and I'm ready for my last try of a new intervals run. And I'm curious to see how today's goes. I was reflecting on my run from last week, and I actually realized that the humidity was way higher the second run I did compared to the first run I did. The first run, the humidity was around 60%. The second run, the humidity was around 90%. And that should have been really obvious to me because I felt like the run was so much harder. But I'm just not used to running in humidity since I lived in San Francisco and then Los Angeles. We don't have that problem there. So just something for me to keep in mind as I start training on the East Coast, that probably when I'm running in humidity, to not push myself as hard or like not expect the same time as when the humidity is lower, because I think I was pushing myself a little too hard on the last run. But on the flip side, it's always humid in Pennsylvania, at least in the summer, so it's nothing I can really get around. Today, the humidity again is like 90%, and it's supposed to be 90% this entire week, so there's nothing I can do to get around it besides just be mindful of it. So I will keep that in mind going into the run today and maybe go a little bit slower. We'll see. Today's interval run is back to time-based, and it's actually shorter than the 1 minute on, 1 minute off, so I'm curious how I will like it. I feel like the first run I did was like medium-sized intervals, at least for me. Last run was really long intervals, and then this is even shorter intervals. So I will be doing 30 seconds recovery, 20 seconds run, and then 10 seconds sprint. I am curious if I'm going to be able to see a difference between running and sprinting. I feel like I've struggled with that in the past. So this should be an interesting one. My plan is to do 5-minute warm up, then do 20 intervals of the 30, 20, 10, and then another 5-minute cool down. And it's at the same loop, so around 5 to 5.5 miles. I think this one will be fun, a little different, a little more advanced. We have 3 different paces now, so I'm excited to see if I can keep up. So let's drive to the running trail and get this running. My custom workout looks like this with just 5-minute warm up and 5-minute cool down. So let's go. I got out of the car and it just immediately lightened and thundered. I knew that the forecast had like scattered thunderstorms, but it has scattered thunderstorms every single day, so I thought I could get away with it. But we're gonna see if we can wait it out. But if it doesn't get better in like 10 to 15 minutes, I'll just have to come back tomorrow. Well, here comes the rain. Also, there's another woman here who like just pulled in as I pulled in too. And you know, when we got out of the car, it wasn't clear outside. Like, it looked very gloomy. And she was just like, I'm gonna go anyways. Like, I'm tired of this rain ruining my summer. I brought a bag. Like, I can get wet. And then there was like a huge thing of lightning. And she's like, all right, I'll wait in the car. So we're both just kind of waiting here and seeing if this will pass. I can just come back tomorrow, but, you know, I'm already here. I already drove here. I'm ready to run. Well, we had a slight 30-minute delay, and it's not raining, but there's so many trees above me that the rain is still coming down. But I'm committed to this run now, so let's start. I actually have so many thoughts about that run. It was very interesting. The first is my math was completely wrong. I don't know how I missed this, but I did 20 1-minute intervals basically because it's 30, 20, 10. So then my run was only 30 minutes because I did 5 minutes warm up, 5 minutes cool down, which does not equal 5.5 miles for me. So I only did around 3.5 for the 30 minutes. I'm just gonna walk because first off, it's very, very humid. And I honestly feel like that was an ample workout. Like, it was hard, right? Because you don't get a lot of recovery, even though it's 1-to-1, it's so short of a recovery. And I actually had pretty good times. If I was to do it again, I would maybe try like a different version. I think there's a lot of things that you could do. Like, one idea would be to do like 10 intervals and then have like a, I don't know, 5-minute walk or 5-minute light jog, and then like get back into another set of intervals. Basically, I think I need longer recovery. I don't think I could have done 40 of those intervals and like had good quality intervals because they were hard. But I'm pretty happy. My times were kind of all over the place. I think very dependent if I was going like even slightly uphill or downhill just because of how short the interval is. Like 10 seconds, every step counts to get your time. But my recovery intervals were actually a little faster than I would have liked them to be. They're between 9 and 10 minutes. And honestly, I want recovery to be above 10 minutes. My guess is that when I came out of the work interval, it just, you know, takes 5 seconds to slow down. And since the recovery interval is only 30 seconds, then my pace doesn't go that up, even though I feel like I did get like to a recovery pace during my recovery intervals. And then the 20-second work, which was supposed to be a run, was between like 7 to 8:30 minute mile pace, which I'm happy with. I was mostly in the 7 to 8 minute, but some random intervals I was at like 8:30. And then my run 10-second sprint was usually between 6 and 7, which I'm also pretty happy with that pacing, especially considering how humid it was. I guess it is a shorter run, so I can go a little bit harder. It was kind of nice actually to make that mistake because I would be open to shorter interval runs in the future because then you feel like you can really push the intervals. I did see very, very little heart rate recovery during my recovery intervals, which makes sense because with 30 seconds, it's really hard to bring the heart rate down. And it's actually funny because my 30-second recovery heart rate is higher than my 20-second work heart rate, because you see the heart rate recovery like in the next interval because they're happening so fast, and then it like skyrockets back up once I get into the work interval and then go into the sprint. So my heart rate was around 175 to 185 the entire run, which again is why I was like, I couldn't do this for 40 minutes straight. So I think that the 20-minute interval, it definitely was a good hard run. Wouldn't want to do more intervals than that without like some serious recovery in between. And I think it was a cool, interesting run to do. I feel like it went by like fairly fast because you really got to watch the clock and like you're constantly going to the next interval. And I also thought the 10-second sprint part was kind of fun because I don't typically do any sprints. So just to like really go after it, but only for 10 seconds. So overall, I think, I don't know. I don't know if I like the first run or the third run the most in this video. The second run was definitely my least favorite. Part of that I think was the humidity, but I also don't think I like intervals that long. And I definitely am going to work interval running into my weekly running schedule now. I'm interested to see over time if I can actually see an increase in pace. Like that's what I want. And if you have any interval running tips, definitely let me know. I would be very curious. I really don't know what I'm doing, but it was fun to just like try some and see how I felt. I feel like without a running coach, you kind of just have to try things and see how they land. So that is it for this video. I hope you guys are staying safe, having an awesome week, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.